Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with symcotraining. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Today, I'm joined by James Weston. Is there any bit of advice you would like to give that, just that one little nugget that you'd like to be known for? So if someone says, listen, James Weston, he taught me all those years ago to do this or do that, and I tell you what, that has put me in good stead.
Oh, there's one. There's one. What would I say? I think it's belief. Never lose belief. I remember when I was general sales manager at Chiswick, we had some enormous targets. There was enormous draw on that site, enormous expectation of that site. And sometimes, probably people right now, you look at what you have to achieve on a monthly basis. Is there going to be a second wave? Are we going to go back into a regional lockdown, etc., etc., etc.? And it's easy to get anxious. It's easy to be fearful, to be conservative, to start self-critiquing in a negative way. I can't. And never do that. Never do that. You can have blind belief, but you can have almost invincible belief. For me, invincible belief is the one to go. You've got to remain optimistic. If you're a salesperson, your customers will see if you're not. If you're a manager, heaven forbid, the second you lose your optimism, you might as well put a stamp on the back of everyone's neck to say they're going to fail, because that's what will happen. You have to hold belief in your own ability, belief that you can control your own destiny. And I've never dropped that. And yeah, sometimes you sort of, you might finish an audio, you might finish a broadcast, you might sit there afterwards and think, Jesus, I've pushed myself too far, I'm worried. But you'll come back. You'll come back and you'll fight back. And often to get that belief, you've got to think, how do I top up my belief? And sometimes it's reflecting on previous achievements. Sometimes it's setting yourself a higher level of ambition, hence that sort of job plus one mentality.
Love that, by the way.
What do I want to strive for further? You have to set a plan. If you don't set a plan, what have you got to believe? You've got nothing to believe. You'll waste your time. You've got to set yourself the goals. But the self and yourself are the most important part. If you create your belief, it will cascade and it will embrace and it will infuse and it will drive and create passion and belief in those around you. And it's just.
That's great advice for anyone. Absolutely brilliant advice. It's my great pleasure today to introduce Tom Stuker. Now, Tom Stuker is the master of the telephone. Okay. Hey, listen, if you're a sales manager, you're a dealer principal, you're working for a dealer group, okay, and they're listening to this now, what tips, what advice would you give them that they could go back and put in place today, immediately, to transform their team or to earn money now in the motor trade?
Well, best advice I give to any new salesperson is master my techniques that teaches anybody how to sell 20 units a month on less than 10 quality conversations a day. And for 40 years, I've made the same guarantee, because I'll do a workshop, I'll train 200 people, the techniques, how to sell 20 units a month on less than 10 quality conversations a day. And by the way, that's based on 16 or 17 days a month. But I'm lucky if 2 to 5% give it a go, right? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people just aren't driven to be successful. But at the same time, I tell everybody, I said, pull your camera out and videotape it so you have proof that I'm giving you this guarantee. I said, I'll pay $10,000 for the first person who proves what I just taught you doesn't work. Guess how many times I've written a check for 10,000? Zero. Mm-hmm. Because the people that do it are doing the 20 units. The people that don't are too lazy to prove it's wrong. So that's how it works, But I'll be glad to pay anybody $10,000 to prove that the training doesn't work. Simon, you know it. the best thing I could tell salespeople is to start working as account executives. Mm-hmm. Go after every orphan owner. Is that a phrase they use in England?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, 100%.
So don't go for the orphan owners from 5 years ago. Go for the most recent orphan owners and go backwards, because the amount of people in a multi-vehicle household that buy 2 vehicles within the same year is phenomenally high. So, because dad gets his, mom wants hers, mom got hers, dad wants his. So work the household, right? Take and turn your CRM into an ATM. So in other words, if you have 1,000 customers, those households own about 2,000 plus vehicles on the average. So make sure that every single person in your CRM, you take a good look at that household. And in your notes, do you know how many drivers, how many vehicles, who's next, who drives what, who's most likely to be in the market next, for what, when, and why? I mean, are you prepared? Are you managing the people, those 1,000 customers, whether you sold them or somebody else did, they bought from your dealership, were happy at one time, or they wouldn't have made that decision. And all you got to do is keep in touch. There's a basic loyalty and they're local. I mean, that's the best people you can talk to on a day-to-day basis. Build the relationships. Are you going to sell every one of them? No. But are you going to sell more than the next guy? Yes. Because 1,000 people, 1,000 households, the people you have a better chance of selling anybody, own 2,000 vehicles. Those vehicles are traded, or those households are buying 500 units on the average year. The people that bought from you were happy at one time, and all you have to do is manage them like a good account manager, and they're buying 500 units a year. That's 33 a month, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. No, is it? No, it's 41 and some change.
And some change. Yeah.
41 and some change. So how many of the 40 can you sell? If you keep in touch, if you know what everybody drives, you have a relationship with them, you're their guy or their gal, right? And you're the one that they go to in the car business. See, you don't have to worry about Carvana if you build relationships, because that's the one thing that will always beat a Carvana is relationship-based selling. Is that people still would rather do business with people. I mean, we all got the same prices. We could all pretty much match anything, but the relationship, the trust level is what will separate you in the future. And it'll be those people that survive the car business, the ones that work those 1,000 households that buy 41 units a month and sell half of them, plus get another 20 from referrals and sell 30 to 40 units a month. And that dealer will never let you out of his sight. They'll keep you no matter what it takes. And that's what you want to do, is build a relationship forever in a dealership, instead of just being one of those guys that's going to eventually get broomed off to the side or renegotiated a pay plan for $100 a car.
Listen, I love that. It's an account manager. That's what people have to be there.
Yep.
Look after people.
Start thinking that. Yep.
Anyone can sell one car. It's not that. Yep. It's selling them the next car, and family and friends cars. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited today to be speaking to David Manchester. If you're selling a house, you probably want more than one person looking at it. So with that in mind, how do you achieve the same thing selling a car dealership? I'm sure you can't just put a for sale sign up outside. Otherwise, the impact it's going to have on staff, on customers, and ultimately the business. Where does the investor start on that, trying to get more people looking at it?
Well, it's exactly like selling a house, Simon. You're quite right. But what you can't do completely is, as you say, is put that sign up outside or advertise it, unless all the staff are aware. In some situations, when a dealership has been terminated by a manufacturer, they'll give them maybe a 2-year notice. Quite a lot of Stellantis dealers have had that happen to them recently. And some people have reached the age in their lives where they don't want to carry on. So they may have told their staff, they may not. So the first thing I establish is it a confidential sale or is it not a confidential sale? If it's a confidential sale, I will talk to a list of targets. I'll put together a list of target dealers, and I will ring them up and say, would you be interested in a British manufacturer in Kent, let's say. So there aren't many British manufacturers left. And then if the people say yes, then I will send them a confidentiality agreement, 12-page NDA, which they'll sign, and then they'll get full details of the business. So first of all, we establish a target list of maybe 25 to 30 businesses, both alternative use and continuing use. And then we'll approach them. I'll approach the principals, most of them I'll know anyway, and determine their interest. If they're interested, NDA, and then they get the full details. And then I'll conduct viewings, normally out of hours, so nobody in the business will know what's going on. And then we'll hopefully get 2, 3, 4 people on a short list who will bid against each other and drive the price up. The alternative use is important if the dealer owns the property freehold. He may say, David, I don't want to make all my staff redundant and close the business, but the alternative use bid is important because it's generally higher than a continuing use bid, and that will drive the price up for continuing use buyers, because I will share that information with them and they will know that they've got an exit to a supermarket, a care home, retirement home, self-storage, if they decide that they don't want to be in that site anymore. They'll know it's got a future value.
So the alternative use is the values of alternative use tends to be higher. Did I understand that right?
You did, yeah. Because as we spoke about earlier, normally a motor trade business is a low margin business, and those uses I mentioned will generally deliver a much higher amount of revenue for the property.
Okay. As an owner, do you find that difficult sometimes with the emotions of a business? I mean, even buying and selling houses, sometimes people get emotionally attached to this is where we had our babies, but surely for the investor, this is their business baby. How do some of them feel about a block of flats being put on their baby? Do you have to really manage the emotional side of it?
That's one of the most difficult things for the vendors to deal with, and especially when it's been a family business. They could be the second or even third generation owner of that business, and they feel like they're selling the family's crown jewels, and they feel like their father or their grandfather would turn in their grave. So that, and then if you bring other family members into it, sometimes I've had 3 brothers involved, and they've got 3 families, their wives, their children, and it can become a complete nightmare. So the emotional side of that is always underestimated, but always a factor and a consideration that I explain to people, that they're going to feel very, very different about what they're doing. So it's something I'll manage as I go along.
Yeah, okay, it must be. Now, also, someone's an investor sitting there thinking, right, I need to exit. This is my opportunity. I want to do it where the profits have been high. I don't know if I want to go through the supply issues going forward. The question I have is, currently in our company, symcotraining, thankfully we've been going for 21 years. We've weathered the COVID storm. And at the moment, I'm looking to invest or acquire other businesses, training companies or allied industries within our business is what I'm looking at. Like I say, it's really hard to buy a business. I've looked at 3 or 4 different training companies at the moment within the motor trade, without other allied industries within the motor trade. And it just seems that these people haven't prepared their business for sale. Too many of these companies are owner-centric. You remove the owner and you think, what's left here? And they just haven't got any idea of preparing the business for sale. Is that something that you really start looking at, preparing that business for sale? Do you start from that level there, or is the business already prepared for sale when you get involved?
Well, generally, I advise people to start preparing for their exit as soon as the thought crosses their mind. And I say, the earlier you prepare, the better the outcome. So you're spot on there. With planning for alternative use, it's critical, because most big planning applications will take 18 months minimum, some cases 3 or 5 years if there's an appeal. And I did mention to you that I'd started doing planning applications on my dealerships, 5 years before we could even exit based on the contract. And that paid dividends. So my advice would be to any owner investor is always consider when and how you might want to exit and start planning that now, today. Because the earlier you do it, the more you will get.
It's my pleasure today to introduce Nick Vanoy. Am I pronounced that right?
Excellent, Simon.
Is there anything you learned in the first 3 months that you think is relevant today for someone just starting in their business career as it was when you started?
I think I just use the word adaptability. I think that's key. I think that's probably the foundation I draw on the most. Probably it predates my professional life. In my case, it's really grounded in me as a human being because of having moved so much. But adaptability and intellectual curiosity, just wanting to learn. Learn from any situation, approach anything as a learning opportunity, engage, talk to people, listen to them, debate, argue, disagree, shout at each other, whatever it is, but don't be a passenger. I think that's the main thing. And if you approach life that way, I personally strongly believe that you'll get the most out of life.
I love that phrase, intellectual curiosity. Just be so curious, but and just ask questions all the time.
Yeah. And ask. And I said this to one of our graduate students last week. She was asking me for career advice, and I said, to me, it's deadly simple. Ask questions. Don't accept no. Usually, when people say no, it's that they're struggling to find an acceptable answer. So challenge them and ask the why and the why and the why and the why. And when you get to that awkward moment where the other person no longer wants to engage, chances are you're just scratching at the surface of a business opportunity. There's probably something there that you've unearthed an opportunity. And then you just need to take risks and go for it.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. It is my great pleasure today. I know I always say that, but honestly, it is this time. I'm with Joni Stuka. Now, you're a dealer listening to this, Joni. Can I ask you, or let me ask in a different way. Let's say you go and buy your own dealer group or dealership, okay? Over the next 2 years, what would you focus on? Now, I'm sure you probably answered lots of it throughout this podcast, but if you are this, and I'm driving at, if you're the manager listening to this, you're the owner listening to this, what should they go back and focus in on their dealership or their dealer group now?
We'll be very, very careful about titles, because what we do is when I'm a titled manager, then I'm an assumed authority of. And it's really hard for a sales manager to say, like, I don't know how to overcome that objection, or I can't handle a phone up well. I have no idea how to go to, oh my God, my favorite, a manufacturer. Send you your list every month, gentlemen and women. And most of us circle file it, or we attempt and do a brutal job of going, like, oh, I see your lease is coming to term in 2 years. You want to come in now? I mean, like, what?
No.
So communication skill is the most important thing. It's more important than anything. I don't care. I don't know anything about cars. Why am I hired? Oh, I'm a General Motors turnkey vendor. I don't know their cars. I mean, do I care? No, I care about people. And I need to understand that what?
Tell us, you're a General Motors key vendor. We don't have that in Europe. Can you explain what that is for a second?
Yeah, so there are a certain few, and you're pretty lucky, but you're a turnkey vendor. So in other words, dealers can they go to the site and you're recommended by them, and they earn money and things back and forth by utilizing people like myself and my team.
Okay.
So it's important and it's huge. But I would go back if it were me, and I would test my skill set. And if anybody listening, I'm happy to provide those testing for them. I have it for every lead source, every opportunity, and also how they manage people. And then I created a really great daily work plan. It's a worksheet for sales associates, because the biggest thing that happens too in stores is that you've got this, let's say, a great customer care team generating all these leads. Awesome. What do you see your salespeople doing? They're sitting there, on their phone, waiting. Okay, now stop that. So BDC never meant do not call. It means everybody get better. Right. And so you have to look at your schedules and note this, please. Never dead anyone. Don't go in your CRM and say, well, after 120 days, we mark them lost, and they go away into the, are you kidding me? That's
no, Joni, they forward them to follow them up in 2042. Okay.
Yeah. And then they go like, are you in the market to buy a clerk? Oh my gosh. So like I said before, whether they buy or not, it's every 90 days. And then I look at my service side, which is huge. I'm really, really worried about a lot of dealers because they're not going to have that service retention without a lot of smart work. And they cannot expect advisors to do that, because if you think sales associates hate the phone, wait till you get an advisor on that, right? So it's important that we actually set a pattern to build our business.
That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, symcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.